Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our Analytic Tableau user group. So what is our Tableau Analytic Tableau user group? It's a dedicated group to learn analytic in Tableau, like his name says it. So we will meet almost every month, but this year we really meet every month. So usually we do like a summer break, but not this time. We had too much interesting speaker to do so we are very happy. And usually we talk about analytic, Tableau server, Tableau desktop, web authoring, everything around Tableau and analytic. So if you want to spread the word, please register if it's not yet done on Bevy. You can also register yourself on the forum just to be sure not to miss anything. And we also have a YouTube channel if you want to watch a previous episode, but it's always good to join live so you can ask questions to our awesome speakers. So we are three TUG leaders. We have Prasam, we couldn't join today, Shimdi, and myself. So I will go through a quick presentation of everyone. Myself, you have my blog post and my Twitter account. I'm also available in LinkedIn. I have the chance to be a Tableau ambassador and Tableau visionary. I like the enablement topic and analytic, obviously. Apart from co-leading this analytic TUG, I'm also co-leading a Data Plus Women Zurich event and an enablement webinar. And I have been playing with Tableau since 10 years already, and I love it. I love visiting about animal, essentially, and having some poetry on my viz. Whatever I do on Tableau Public is very different for what I do for work, so like this. And then we have Prasam. Prasam also fell in love with Tableau and the data farm, and is a huge contributor of the Tableau community. He found Tableau Buddy and this dinner. You can Google it if you don't know of this initiative. So Prasam started using Tableau in 2020 and is currently working as a manager data visualization at Emirates. And he has 4 V's of the day. I think that you really should watch his profile. What he does is very cool. And he's also a visionary and ambassador. And Prasam looks anime, food, and cats. I think that the only thing I disagree are the cats. Yeah, no, they are cute too, okay? I don't want to create any enemies here. And then last but not least, we have Shimdi. Shimdi has an incredible amount of V's of the day, 14. You have to give us your secret. I mean, I love whatever he's doing on Tableau Public. He has awesome skills, awesome styles. Shimdi is a freelancer in data visualization for clients. He fell in love also with Tableau in 2020. And he's awesome. Just look at his Tableau Public profile. He's also a visionary and ambassador. And he enjoyed documentary and attempting to make melody on the keyboard. I never had the chance to hear about the nice melody he's doing. Maybe for December I can write something.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Let's do something in December. I promise I will not sing. I will not sing. That's already a big step. And the rule for today are please enjoy the show. Everything is being recorded. Use the Q&A if you have any question, or just use the chat if you want to have a fun conversation. And then I will let Shimdi present and introduce our program today and our awesome speaker. Thank you very much for joining.
Awesome. Thanks, Annabelle. So as far as today goes, we've had the welcome, and now we're going to move on to our awesome speakers. So first, we've got someone who is definitely no stranger in the data viz world, Steve Wexler. He is the founder of Data Revelations, and he's the author of The Big Picture, which is a book that I think I definitely recommend everyone should check out. It won data literacy's most insightful data book. And it's a really handy resource that you can use in your day-to-day as you craft visualizations and tell data stories for your clients, for businesses, wherever you're doing your visualization in Tableau. He's helped organizations like Amazon, Gallup, McKinsey, et cetera, make decisions through effective visualization. And he's trained thousands of people in different industries. And like I mentioned before, he's globally recognized as a leader in our field. So definitely you are lucky. We are lucky to be here to hear from him. He's a Tableau Visionary Hall of Fame, which means he's basically just contributed so much to the community that at this point, it's really hard to even quantify, right? He's an IronViz champion. For those of us who don't know what IronViz is, it's the largest data viz competition globally, as far as I understand. And, you know, three contestants get on stage at the conference and they battle it out for some money, et cetera, and the glory. So Steve has won. So that's a very, very huge accomplishment. He has been at the forefront of the community for years. And then he also has a bunch of other books that he's authored. For example, the Big Book of Dashboards, another handy resource which will help you in your day-to-day. And he's currently working on another book to, of course, bring us some more goodness. And it's called The Dashboards That Deliver. So definitely be on the lookout for that. I can definitely, you know, imagine that being just as amazing as the other ones. He also serves on the advisory board of the Database Society. He co-hosts Chart Chat with a few other leaders in the community, where it's basically they, you know, talk about charts, what works, what doesn't work, and just general discussion about visualization and, you know, helping us upskill in that area. That series has also won some awards as well, and he delivers a bunch of workshops at different times. So you can check him out on his platforms to see what next he's got an offering if you want to learn from him directly. Fun fact about Steve: he led a popular NYC-based Motown and R&B band called The Top Shelf. I got a chance to check out like some of the, you know, stuff they do, really amazing. So, you know, that's also pretty cool about Steve. And today his presentation is called "What Good Looks Like in Visualizing Survey Data and How to Do That in Tableau." So I'm going to pass it over to you, Steve, to get us to good stuff.
Hey, what a warm and gracious and scary introduction. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm delighted. Let's get right into this. Also, there is one cardinal sin in giving a presentation, and I'm wondering if the hosts and moderators of this and my fellow presenters agree with me. What is the one thing you should never do when giving a presentation? Okay, yeah, reading slides, but especially if you're the guy who goes first. Pie charts. This is I like this group. No, I'm actually going to try a live demo, Thomas. Don't change things at the last minute. Have everything ready. Oh, think this is good. Just one screen. No, it's running long. You know, no one has ever been upset if you're giving a presentation or a lecture, if you're a professor and you go, you know what, we finished 15 minutes early. Has anyone ever been upset by that? Never. But if you run long, especially with other people presenting, so I tend to get into this stuff. So making sure I don't run long and also, you know, that's very inconsiderate of the two brilliant presenters who are going to be sharing after me. So let me get this set up. Move the window over here. Yeah, wrong window. Almost ready. And let me share my screen. Gosh, this is giving me a hard time in front of company. Yeah, just killed a few minutes there already.
We have time. We can speak on the same time. You try to find like how to share the screen. It's fine. Don't worry, Steve.
Almost
That
got
happened
it.
to me all the time. which is maybe not a reference. But
All right, this will do. There we go. How nice. Share my screen. Yes, you just gotta love professionals, don't you? All right, we good? You see the thing that says, what does good look like? Fantastic.
yes,
For survey data and other types of data, because if you're not into survey data, why are you even bothering to come to this thing? Because a lot of the techniques are going to work really well, and that I think are really useful. Chindi, what a great job with the introduction. Thank you. Please realize the Big Book of Dashboards and the new book, I am just one of several authors. Big Book of Dashboards is Andy Cotgreave, no longer with Tableau. Holy crap. And Jeff Schaefer. And Dashboards That Deliver, we had the good sense to invite our chart chat chum, our CCC, Amanda McCulloch. So Dashboards That Deliver, I'm going to be mentioning that a little bit later. So I'm this, the author of these books. But my main gig these days is I am a professional chart looker adder. People actually hire me to come in, look at their stuff and suggest are there better ways or other ways to present this? Anyone who has seen a presentation of mine or attended a workshop has seen some variation of this slide. You are encouraged to debate and to disagree. Good stuff happens when we discuss these things in a respectful way. And I'm so much better when people have said, I don't think that's quite right. So hopefully we'll leave time for that at the end. You can chime in and say, hey, have you considered such and such? All right, here's what I'm going to show you. Here are general techniques that I think are really useful. And if you in fact find them useful, here are resources to do this stuff. Many of them are absolutely free. I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to discuss a couple of paid resources. Well, my main thing that I want to discuss is what does good look like? And that's according to me. Who the heck am I to say this is good and that isn't? I'm going to share my thinking about it, and you can either accept it or reject it. But there wasn't some big committee of 100 people or a conclave that decided, yes, this is good. In any case, after years and years, here's some approaches that I take to this stuff. Hopefully you'll like them as well, and you'll want to see how to do them. But first, huge warning, and boy, isn't that an annoying yellow. The number one thing in dealing with survey data, this is with any data with Tableau, but it's really pertinent with survey data, is the way you are probably downloading it or the way it is sitting on some server someplace is not the way you want it to be if you want to have a good time with Tableau. So if I can leave you with one thing, don't just think you're going to download that Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey thing, connect to it, and find joy. You're not. You're going to be miserable. You've got to get, because the data, as I try to gesticulate, and hopefully you can see me, the data is like this. You don't want it like this. You want it like this. And so, in this case, what we've got is something, well, this looks really easy for me to read. I can see that the first respondent here is respondent number 2. There's usually an ID number, and there's some demographic data, male, lives in South America, Generation X. The weighting is how much weight you put to this person's response based on whether the group that you've captured, that you've surveyed, is an accurate reflection of the population you want to know about. And here's the answer to question 1 and to question 100 and question 2_1, etc. Looks easy, right? Do not think you're going to have any success. You need to get it looking something like this, which looks really silly. Wait a minute. Here's respondent number 2, and he's a male. Look at this. He's still a male. Oh, he's still in Generation X. He still lives in South America. And so you're repeating all this demographic information, especially the ID, but you now have the question true. Oh, for question 1, he answered no, or it was coded as a 0. For question 100, this person answered some really large amount. For question 2_1, answered no. For question 28 underscore imp, meaning importance, answered 5. Whatever it was about, it was very important. And then there's just some metadata here that says, oh, that question, it's a Likert scale question. So I cannot go through right now how to take the data in its raw form and turn it into the data the way you want it to be, but I will absolutely give you myriad resources so you can get your data in the right format. Instead, I want to show you, hey, here's what I think you should be doing. And if you agree or you think it's useful, I'll point you to resources that show you what you can be doing. So I'm going to start with a single punch question, meaning that the person can only choose one answer. Now, who is your favorite Beatle? Don't give me John Lennon and Paul. You can only answer one. So, will you vote in the upcoming election? Only 3 choices: yes, no, don't know. Well, how would you visualize that? Well, I'll start with something pretty easy. No, it's not going to be a pie chart unless you want to show that more than half of the people, in which case that could be a very effective pie chart because you can see the slice is more than half. But you're probably going to want to do a bar chart. And we can get in, do we want to show, how many people responded, et cetera, because, you get a lot of responses, you can feel better about the survey than if you get few. Well, what happens if you want to look at split by different demographics? Do men versus women plan differently? Do older people versus younger people plan differently? Well, how would you do that in Tableau? And one way is to just put the demographic selection, in this case, gender, over here. And you can see yes, broken by men versus women, no, broken by men versus women, don't know, broken down by men versus women. This is called a paired, in this case, because it's just paired. But if you have more than 2, it's called a clustered bar chart. And this gets hard to understand, hard to read. It doesn't help that Tableau is really bad at that because it doesn't allow you to hey, I want to take all the yes bars and smush them together and then have a nice big gap and then do the no's. And yeah, you can read lots of blog posts on how to do that, but I would argue don't do that at all. There are better ways to do this, and I want to hip you to one of my favorite approaches. It's called the connected dot plot. If it's only got 2 things in it, it's called a barbell chart or a dumbbell chart. It's also called a gap chart because it's great at showing the gaps between this group and that group. And it works great for non-survey data stuff. I'll explain in a second. So here's that same data as, well, what the heck is that? It's just a little dot, and then I've got a big vertical line in it. Well, the vertical line is overall. And right now, I'm not breaking this down by anything. But let's say I want to break it down by gender. So I'll do that. And whoa, now I can see there's a gap between the blues and the oranges, whoever they are. Now, I'm really do whatever I can never to have a color legend. That I hate the idea of someone's got to look someplace else to see, well, what does blue mean? What does orange mean, et cetera? If I'm going to have a color legend, I want it to be telling me more than just color. This is a value added legend in that it's not just telling me what the colors stand for, it's also telling me the response count. And in fact, the little red dot there, which means that's universal through a dot means look at me. Red dot doesn't necessarily mean uh-oh. It means in Western culture, it means uh-oh, but it means, hey, look out. In this case, that's not a whole lot of responses that are there. By the way, the interactivity that you can add to these things can allow us to, hey, I want to see where the big gaps are. Are there big gaps between the millennials, the youngest generation of this group surveyed, and the traditionalists, the so-called greatest generation? And yeah, there are some pretty big gaps there. And is that worth something that's exploring? That's really hard to see with the clustered bar chart, but it just pops with the connected dot plot, aka gap chart, etc. So imagine superstore sales. Sorry to have that painful reminder of data sets that don't actually exist in the world, but you want to show consumer versus corporate versus education, and you want to break it down by north, south, east, and west. This might be a great way to do that. So in any case, love the idea of having a value-added legend that's there. And just think this should be in your arsenal of techniques. A connected dot plot. By the way, if you want to look at how Pew Research, they do amazing work, shows the difference amongst different demographic groups of how do you feel the job that Prime Minister so-and-so is doing, broken down by education level, where people are located in different parts of the country, etc. It's a great technique. Also notice the vertical line, that's showing overall. All right, multi-punch questions where you're giving people more than one thing to select. So please indicate all the things you measure, check all that apply. Or maybe it's check the 5 things that are most important to you, but you're checking more than one item. And it means the results are going to add up to more than 100% because you have a lot of people tracking. In this case, the number one thing that people measure in this made-up survey is adrenaline production. Number 2 is metabolism. Number 3 is blood pressure. And number 9 is pupil dilation, at least for the overall population. Well, let's see if there are any differences by generation, by traditionalist, baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and if I were to update the survey, we'd get Gen Z in there as well. Yikes. That's just really hard to see what's going on. And yeah, I can see some really big bars and some really small bars, but I'm getting the Moray effect with this thing, and please take this away. But the connected dot plot can work really well for this. And in fact, I'm seeing some huge gaps, and it's the traditionalists, there are very few of them who responded, that are really, really high or really low here. And let's say in this case, I'm going to focus on the millennials and the baby boomers. I'm a baby boomer. There's at least one other on this call, and I'm not going to give that person up because I'm not evil, but there's at least one other baby boomer who's in this attending this presentation at the moment. And I'm curious, are there any differences that might be noteworthy? And I'm seeing one that pops out. Breathing. Okay, millennials, they measure breathing. 67% of them, but only 47% of baby boomers do. Maybe this is something that's interesting. Maybe this is something that we should look at. Maybe it's totally bogus because I didn't survey nearly enough people and the margin of error is just gigantic, which I'm going to get into in a minute. All right, this is a way to show this. I want to show another way that I'm really fond of because it's hard for me to see the ranking that is here. What's first, what's second, what's third, etc. Within different categories. Yes, overall adrenaline is first and overall pupil dilation is last. But what happens when I break it down by different groups? So here's the overall ranking. So I want to show not just the ranking, which you could do as a bump chart. You could see how it's moving up and down in different groups, but I also want to see how large or small it is. And this is something that's celebrated in the Big Book of Dashboards. You can also find this at the Data Revelations website. But if I'm curious about breathing, I'll see this. Well, look at this. Overall, it's 57%. But I can see in this group, baby boomers is only 47%, traditionalists a whopping 86%, and here's where I can see what the rankings are. So within baby boomers, it's 4, Generation X, it's 4, millennials, it's 2, and it's the number one thing that traditionalists want to measure. They want to know that they're breathing. Here's a case of being a professional chart looker at her can be problematic. I've got a response count down here as a marginal histogram, but it's the bars are going in the opposite direction. I have zero problem reading this. A lot of people do because they're going, wait a second, what are you doing there? And why are the bars dipping down? And I would normally put them at the top, but it's kind of hard to fit them in here as it kind of messes up this versus this. But I got to rethink this a little bit. In any case, I have no problem reading this thing. A lot of people do. So I'm curious what other people think. What I'm trying to show is the response count down in the bottom, that I got an F ton of baby boomers, but only 14 traditionalists who took the survey. And I want to make sure that I'm getting that across. All right, on to Likert scale questions. And if nothing else, you will walk away from here. And I know Annabelle knows what I'm about to say. And you now know the proper pronunciation of the guy's name. His name was Rensis Likert. And I think I'd use a circle instead of a negative bar. Oh, the Likert scale. That's very funny. Rebecca, the problem with that is people are horrible at judging the area of circles compared with the length of bars, but I'm going to have to save that for another presentation. I love that presentation, but I can't do it now. In any case, it's Likert, not Likert, even though it looks like it should be called Likert. The guy's name was Rensis Likert, and he came up with the idea of coming up with quantitative measures for qualitative notions as part of his PhD thesis. And he's the guy who said, indicate the degree to which you agree or disagree with something. And strongly disagree is a 1, and strongly agree is a 5. And then you can, what do you do with all these things? Well, I'll tell you what I do with all these things. I go nuts. I've been trying for 19 years to figure out what is the optimal way to display Likert scale data. And for the record, that is not an AI-generated image. I went to iStock Photo and I paid $12 for that thing. And whoever took the photo is going to get a royalty, which is the right way to do things here. As long as the people who are contributing the art are being compensated for it, I would have no problem with AI. That is not the case, but we'll leave that for another discussion as well. So in any case, with displaying Likert scale data, and not just taking the average of all things, you're probably going to run into some type of stacked bar situation. And I want to explain the problems with stacked bar charts. That the stuff that's in the middle of the stacked bar, you're going to have a hard time making a comparison. I've got these floating bars right here. Now, not that you would ever display data this way, but I'm just trying to make my point. Which bar is the longest? Central, east, south, or west? And I know you're all looking at this and you're all going to, impress and say, oh, I can see which is the largest. It's south. Yeah, but then is central bigger than east, than west? It's hard. You've got to focus on it. You've got to think about it. But if I move the bars so that they're all lining up with a common baseline, bingo. Central is bigger than south, is bigger than west, is bigger than east. So let me show you some of the problems that you run into with the stacked bars. So I've removed the neutrals from this, and I'm just looking, I've got a divergent stacked bar chart here, and I've got all the negative sentiment on the left, and I've got all the positive sentiment on the right. So by the way, I could have easily, no color legend, put strong, very important, sorry, strongly disagree, agree, strongly agree, and inside the bars, so I don't have to look up what dark orange is. In any case, I'm probably interested in either the extreme orange or the overall orange. And Kai, I'm not able to answer your question at the moment as much as I want to. So I can see overall orangeness, overall blueness. But if I want to compare, but I want to know the people who really disagree and the people who really agree, or the people who are really unsatisfied and the people who are really, really satisfied. And that's you're focusing on the outside bars, and that's really hard. But if I put them on the inside, now that's really easy. I can compare these extreme values and I can see more people are dissatisfied with 24/7 support, very dissatisfied with 24/7 support than with ease of use. But when I had them on the outside, it was much more difficult. So I started running some polls, etc., and I asked, hey, here's a way to show sentiment. in this case, Likert scale data, and I'm combining the 1s and 2s and the 4s and 5s. The neutrals are really hard to deal with, and I think they're really important. They need to have their own baseline. And I asked people, did a poll. I got about 400 responses. It was good. And which do you prefer, A or B? Now, I prefer A. I was hoping people would prefer B because B is way easier. Sadly, that was not the case. Most people preferred A. Notice my intelligent use of stacked bar charts here, that I am putting the much easier, much more along the baseline, because I probably don't really care the percentage of people think, compare these two things. I'm looking to compare the feel strongly about with feel strongly about, and the general, yes, this is easier. No, this is easier. Intelligent way to do this, as it plays into what humans do well without training. Then I asked folks subsequently, which do you prefer, this one or the other one? By the way, notice the rather like the use of direct labeling here. There's no color legend. I decided to put the value axes at the top, but I could have swapped these things. And the one on the left is counterintuitive, because you're expecting to go really bad, bad, good, really good. But instead, I'm having the concentrated values in the middle, and then they kind of go out from the middle. And to my disappointment, but not surprise, most people found B easier to understand. All right, so what to make of this? There are some good aspects of this, but you'll see I have the screaming hat icon, and I wouldn't do this. One is it's a little hard to take in, and two, comparing the neutrals is a bear to get this. And neutrals are important. By the way, if you have even scale Likert, even Likert scale, so you're only giving people 4 choices or 6 choices, you can do this stack bar chart. And because this is pretty cool, I can get, the blueness versus the brownness here and make good comparisons. And I have the extreme values up here and the extreme values over here. Also, I thought this was just the coolest thing ever. I'll split the neutrals in half and put half of them this way and half of them that way. And I now don't think this is a good way to do it. This is not a bad way to do it. And if you want, we can display the values as well. And I'm not going to get into my argument of why I think neutrals are important, but you can go to datarevelations.com and type in neutrals, and you'll see, make my argument for it. Ultimately, this is what I really like and would try to convince my clients of it. I don't think I'm going to succeed. Daniel Zvinka is this amazing data visualization hobbyist. He just does data visualization as it's a hobby, doesn't do it as for a living. And he comes up with some great techniques, and I've emulated this one here. But Stephen Few, who has influenced so many people in the field of data visualization. I always looked at him as being Edward Tufte for the real world, as opposed to Menard visualization that you're never going to use in business. And that had, he also was really blown away by this guy, Daniel Zvinka. So you now know that it's pronounced Likert, and now you know you should look up this guy, Dan Zvinka. Really does great work. In any case, I really love this technique, as it allows me to compare the overall negative with the overall negatives, the overall positives with positives, the neutral. But if I want the very satisfied or very dissatisfied, I can make a really easy comparison. I'm having a hard time convincing people that this is what they should do. I'd work with my client. I'd see if they agree. And if not, I try something else that works for them. I was going to do an interactive demo and show you, you can click on some stuff, but I'm trying not to be hypocritical. And I said, the one cardinal sin is going long, and that if we have time, I'll go to the demo. Let's go back to this. Now, suppose you want to break this down. Oh, well, okay, Steve, I will temporarily buy into your inside out approach to this, though I think you're a madman and no one's going to understand it. Suppose you now want to break this down by gender or generation or where somebody lives. That means each row is going to have 4 more rows associated with it. It's going to be frigging impossible. That's why you will often see something called a top 2 boxes calculation. The percent of people who chose either a 4 or a 5, or maybe you want the bottom 2 boxes calculation. So getting back to this, here is the overall, the percentage of people who either were satisfied or very satisfied. And I've kind of got a cool thing here. Instead of having a separate dashboard for each Likert question, I've got 3 different Likert questions, so I could also look at the importance scale on this. So if that matrix thing was importance versus satisfaction, there's a whole cool technique for that as well. Right now, I'm not breaking it down by anything, but once again, we're going to get our connected dot plot. Now, it looks like there are some pretty big gaps here. But I do want to, and this is very specific to survey data, unlike the techniques themselves, dealing with margin of error. You see something like this and go, 76% of people believe this. And then there's usually this tiny little footnote that says plus or minus 3% or something like that. But you're just seeing 70%, 76% said this, 65% said this. If you're only getting a margin of error of 2-3 points, well, you probably have a lot of survey respondents. Well, overall, I think we have 845 survey respondents for this. So when I say, show me the margin of error with 95% confidence, which means if you were to conduct this survey 100 times, 95 times out of 100, the true value will be somewhere within here. Hopefully this is one of those cases, because it may be much lower or much higher. In fact, the population thinks such and such. But look what happens when, and again, I got this technique from Daniel Svinka. He came up with, oh my God, that is such a cool thing. Let me see if I can do that in Tableau. So here are the respondents. And notice no color legend here, I'm telling you. And I could also just have those bars there, but the idea is, hey, there are very few traditionalists. There are a lot of baby boomers that are here. But look what happens to the margin of error when you have so few respondents. Look at the really tiny dot that you'll see there. And you can see this is the margin of error with 95% confidence. Yeah, I got a slider there. We can bring it down to 80% confidence and it would narrow it. But in fact, we can say with 95% confidence, the true value is somewhere between that really low thing and that really high thing. And the depth of the traditional color legend, I got a bugaboo about that. That's just me. That I just don't want people having to look down here and then look up there and then look down here and then look up there. If I can somehow stop that, I feel I've succeeded with something in it. In any case, this is pretty important stuff to be aware of if you are visualizing survey data, and maybe not just putting a little footnote, but letting people see, oh my God, I didn't realize we really need to get a lot more responses. Otherwise, yeah, we said that it's somewhere between, it's 65%. Well, it could be as low as 40% and as high as 85%. So something to keep in mind. Last type of thing I'll go over with you is benchmarking questions and the delights of disaggregated data, that just taking the average or median can really be problematic, especially when you're asking people how much money you make, how many hours do you work, how much time do you watch Netflix, binge watching rom-coms, etc. So here's a salary survey system, and here are the results. Here is your salary. You are the lovely blue dot, and the average of everybody else is the whatever color dot that is. How miffed are you? How pissed off are you? Let me show you, maybe you're a little bit miffed, but you might rationalize, oh, I haven't been with the company as long. Oh, I'm less experienced in this. Let me show you exactly the same data, what it looks like when it's disaggregated. That's your dot. You are in the lowest quartile. Exactly the same data, but what a different takeaway from this. So this jitter plot, this showing all the dots, but showing some reference line and showing your stakeholder where their dot is with respect to others. Holy crap. Here's another way to do this. This is called either a Cleveland dot plot. It's also called a unit histogram. And that's where your dot is, showing the distribution. Kind of what you would expect, by the way, that there are very few people making a lot of money, very few people making very little money, and most of things are kind of clustering around the middle. This just showing averages, just showing a summary statistic when you have data like this. I love this cartoon from Math with Bad Drawings by Ben Orlin. Get that book, by the way. Okay, Likert scale, stock photos versus AI crap that looks awful and people who contributed to it don't make any money. And get this book by Ben Orlin, Math with Bad Drawings. So what would my starting salary be? Well, let's put it this way. Our average starting salary is $80,000. And you discover you and your coworkers all make $30,000 and the CEO's son makes $430,000. And that, in fact, gives you an average of $80,000. I did something before the Tableau conference because you're used to having this normalized curve. Very few people are, there are very few people who are 8 feet tall. There are very few people who are 3 feet tall, but you're going to have a lot of people who are between, 5 feet and 6 feet tall. So you have a curve that kind of looks like this. But I decided to do a test of what people think of anchovies. And you're not going to get this, what you would expect to get, people in the middle of the road of it. And I love this cartoon. Paid for the cartoon also. Okay. I found this thing. There's a place where you can find cartoon art and you can pay for the right to reuse it. And I just love this. Some will love you, son, some will hate you, but it's always been that way with anchovies. So conducted a survey. What do you think? The average score was 4.4. So people are kind of in the middle of the road. They're not. This is again, classic example of bimodal. Either people hate them or they love them. So this is an average score. This is doing a net promoter score, by the way, which has a negative 46.8. I'm not going to get into net promoter score type of stuff. By the way, that's me. I cannot stand anchovies. I am definitely in the 0 category from that. I will show you this example about disaggregated data from my past and then where the resources are on this stuff. By the way, I was told I had 40 minutes. I set the clock for 36. We're at 35 minutes at the moment. So I do like this. I was working with a major healthcare company. They had data on thousands of companies and millions of people. These were the employees and their families. They were determined to save costs and quite possibly save lives through compliance. How can we get buy-in? They were looking at all these different diseases that people were getting and what were they doing to treat them. And in this case, they were focusing on incidence of diabetes. And they had a presentation and they would meet with an organization and say, the incidence of diabetes in your organization, 18.5% of employees and their families, but the average of all organizations like yours is only 4.9%. This didn't resonate with folks. So we did this. We created a strip plot showing there were 790 dots, and you want your dot to be low. That means a low incidence of diabetes. Well, it's hard to see 790 things, so we jittered them. And you can see way more clustering at the bottom. We then drew this line that said, anything above this line puts you in the worst 1%. Here's where your company is. And boy, did it have an effect, because people could, that 18.5%, they could now see it in context. So great technique, not just with survey data, but disaggregated data to show where there are enviable, or in this case, unenviable outliers. All right, resources. Please visit datarevelations.com, and I have, I don't know how many scores of blog posts on how to visualize survey data. By the way, creating a unit histogram, a jitter plot. I've got, probably 6 different ways of showing Likert scale data, how to do the margin of error stuff, etc. This is completely free. And when you are there, make sure to get this, the official Tableau white paper on visualizing survey data. And it's free. You just have to give up your email address and then decide whether you want to be on the newsletter or not. So how-to blog post, tons of workbooks, tons of stuff, all free. Now, the not free stuff, in case you or you have colleagues who are interested, I do offer an on-demand course on visualizing survey data. I'm now announcing this publicly for the first time, which is instead of it being for 1 year of access, you now have lifetime access, and price is going up on October 1st. So it's $299 between now and September 30th, lifetime access, and also roughly once a month I have an Ask Me Anything session around it. Also, coming September 23rd, that's when dashboards that deliver will be available. That's the official launch date for it. And you can pre-order the book at Amazon.com, and you can learn more about the book and what we're doing and some of the presentations we have coming up at dashboardsthatdeliver.com. And if you would like to be in touch with me, there's my email address, there's the website, and if you and I, and if we're not connected on LinkedIn, feel free to connect. If we have at least one mutual connection, I will accept. If we have none, I will look at your profile and go, are they just want to sell me something, or do they want to connect and be colleagues? I do hope you check out the books. Do check out datarevelations.com, especially if you're doing survey data. Please avail yourself of the free resources. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen. And however much time we have for Q&A, I'm leave that up to the moderators. And
that was a fantastic session, Steve. Thank you very much.
Oh, always my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you.
And sorry, I saw questions coming into chat and going, damn, there's no way I can address questions and finish in time. So my apologies for not stopping and saying, hey, let's discuss. So anything pop up that you thought, ooh, that's really pithy?
Maybe we have time for one question, Chimdi?
Yep, sure thing. Let's see, what's a high impact question here? So, okay, let's do one by Amy. It's basically asking, says, I also love the jitter plots. And the question is there any way of getting around this aggregating data for public facing dashboards, or an effective alternative?
I think, look, we're all trying to champion the same thing, which is data fluency, data literacy, and getting people to understand and appreciate more effective ways of communicating with data. So you can show both. People want to know what the average salary is. People want to know what the average SAT scores are, or whatever. But there are, well, certainly with averages, it's really easy. You've got that reference line that they can understand. And then when they see, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it's so low. It could be as low as this and as high as this. Sometimes it's slow reveal. You first show them what they're used to, the summary statistic, then you click something and then something appears. That's what happened with the gap chart. So if people aren't familiar with and understand how to use a gap chart, you say, overall, 57% of people said this, but I want to break this down by gender. I want to break it down by region. and you click something and it animates and you see, okay, here is the overall, but now I see this dot here and this dot here. It's, oh, you just taught me how to read the chart. And I followed, kind of understood a little narrative that you're doing with this. So maybe some step-by-step, or encouraging them to click and see what happens when you click here and see how it reveals, so to speak.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. And if it's all right with you, I do see we have a few things in the Q&A. So if you don't mind popping in there and maybe just giving some answers, that would be really amazing. Thank you.
I will do my best. Also, Beatles versus Stones, definitely Beatles. Okay. That question is in there, right?
Awesome. So yeah, that was a great session on visualizing survey data, a relatively popular use case. So hopefully we learned some great stuff. And now we're going to move on to our next speaker. Just going to share my screen. Perfect. So next we have another popular face in the community, Sekou Tyler. Sekou is an independent analytics consultant. He's got over a decade of experience transforming data into actionable insights. And he's worked with a lot of industries, and he recently formed his own company, Royal Blue Analytics, where he uses Tableau and a bunch of other tools to help clients tell stories with their data. I like to think of him as, the tool guy. He's basically got his hands in a lot of things. So, if you want to know a little bit more about Tableau, he's definitely someone you can talk to. Sekou is also a Tableau ambassador, and he's got a lot of platforms, YouTube. He does like a series on LinkedIn. So, be sure to check him out. Lots of helpful stuff for whether you're entry level or a seasoned professional. There's lots that you can learn from him, right? He's really passionate about teaching and mentoring others. And so, definitely connect with him. He's always happy to chat about basically anything that you want to chat about. Fun fact about Sekou. Sekou is a diehard Tennessee Titans and LA Lakers fan. Actually, the first kind of things I got to see about him was definitely all sports related. So definitely he's really into that. And like we mentioned before, he loves mentoring, reading, and he loves spending time with his wife and daughter. He's got lots of photos on them on social media. You can check that out. And also spending time with close friends. And if you want to connect with Sekou, you can find him on all platforms as Sekou. He definitely got first dibs on that name. So it's, a great thing and easy for, networking there. So his talk today is about how Tableau analysts can harness AI to work smarter. So I guess the other side where Steve, maybe has some reservations, Sekou is going to show us how to use things the right way and, benefit from that in our workflow. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Sekou. Are we able to hear you? Is anyone, Sekou? I don't know that we can hear you.
We cannot hear you, Sekou. No, we see that you are in green, so we should, but something is happening.
What about now?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. User error. AI. My bad. The robots got me. So right before here. Awesome. Thanks so much for that introduction, Chimdi. I was just talking away, man. Appreciate y'all having me on. I cut it into 2 minutes. So I got a roll in 38 minutes. So let's get it going. Excited to be on. I share my screen and let's dive into this. Let's have some fun today. All right, so how Tableau analysts can harness AI to work smarter. Thanks for that introduction, Chimdi. I'm Sekou Tyler. I am founder and CEO of Royal Blue Analytics, and we'll dive into how I use AI and different use cases that I use for different tools. to dive into it. All right, so a little bit about me, decade of experience transforming raw data into actionable insights, and I'm the founder and CEO of Royal Blue Analytics. Our team empowers organizations to do a lot of things with data. We focus on BI, data engineering, and above. So if you have a semantic model, a database, and different things, and you need really good reporting and foundational and strategy and metadata and different things of that nature, will help you out. If you need API calls and strictly just data scientists and different things, might not be your person, but we work on really the BI side of things and helping you get your insights from your data. A little bit about me, community engagement. I'm a Tableau social ambassador, Tableau user group leader, currently active in the Black and Data user group. I used to do Nashville. Shout out to Jim. I saw you on here. I'm still rolling with the Nashville. I'm just super busy, but Jim's been really nice with me to not be as involved there. Follow me on social media at Sekou, and then I'm blogging more. So if you're on Medium, I've started to use that as my blog of choice. Follow me at sequelsekou.com. Another thing for community, I got to give a shout out to my brother Aaron Porter, who actually joined the session on here. It's legit like my friend. I'll probably see him this weekend. So it's always great when people come and support you when you do things, especially talking about data and stuff. So shout out to you, AP. I'll shoot you a text after this. As far as certifications, as Chimdi mentioned, I like to keep a job. So I'm always trying to learn and do a lot of different things. So I'm Tableau certified consultant, Databricks. I just got the Snow Pro certification for Snowflake. I got some Microsoft ones as well, have Alteryx, and I think that's all I have for now. I'm going to pick up some other ones, but I use certifications as a way of just learning. It's mostly, I don't really care about the validation of the intent of if I'm certified, that means I can deliver. It's mostly the process of getting a certification and evolving and growing in the tool. But as far as my content, I have a podcast called 10 Minute Tuesday, and it's featured on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. And I was actually blessed to be able to talk about it at the Tableau conference. So if you go to Salesforce Plus, there is a session on here where I spoke at Tableau conference called 10 Minute Tableau. Rapid insights from data found best. And I'll talk to what the podcast meant to me and career insights and how I've leveraged basically social media and branding for my own particular brand. So check it out if you want to see it out there. It's available on salesforce.com. All right, so let's talk some more about my journey. So my Tableau journey, I was actually introduced to Tableau in 2017, which is crazy to think about. You think about the first time you open up this tool and you look back at the years and you're like, wow, it's been 8 years since I picked this up. It feels like yesterday. So I started as a Tableau analyst. I was the only one at my job at that time, and really picked it up and just went full force and got active in community. In 2021, I was recognized as a Tableau ambassador. So that's been a fantastic privilege to be involved and to be able to actually do stuff like this and speak about things that I'm passionate about, and phenomenal community. And then in 2023, went and launched Royal Blue Analytics. So now I run my own consultancy. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we provide specialized data solutions and strategic insights and do a lot of different things with a lot of good people. So here's how AI transformed my work. AI generated this photo. That's not me, but AI created this, and it just does a lot of stuff for me, right? Going out on your own, thinking about staffing and scaling and resources and time, especially because it's been 2 years. My biggest asset is time. That's my biggest revenue driven. That's the biggest thing that motivates me. So how AI has helped me out is looking at different ways that I can automate it versus me spending additional time. As Chimdi mentioned, I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a business owner. I'm active in my church. I do a lot of different things. So AI has really allowed me to free up times with things that matter for me. So different things that I've done is automating repetitive tasks, unlock or deeper insights for complex data sets that I might not know about, enhance creativity with dashboard design, and empowers analysts to focus on high value strategic contributions. So I'll dive a little bit deeper into that. So here are some real world use cases where I've used AI, and this is this year. The biggest one that I think was really cool for me was I was able to take some metadata from an industry that I wasn't particularly familiar with all the way. And I was able to look and download a extract from their database. Didn't have any real data in it. So there wasn't any type of fear of giving the wrong data into a different base. It was all metadata, just columns and just information about it. I was able to upload this and generate an actual data model that was about 80% accurate, where it knew the joins that it needed. It knew the type of granularity. It built it out into like a star schema. So it knew the fact tables, knew the dimension tables, it knew different things. And that exercise took like 10 minutes for me to do, from exporting all the way to creating the actual data model to the design of it. And understanding, like, I didn't know the industry as much, but understanding how much time I saved was a real aha moment for me. It was like, whoa, this is a little bit out the box that I would have never like used this for, but it really helped save a lot of time. Another way I think a lot of people are using this for calculation assistance. So again, if we're looking at, I don't know how to do this LOD, or I don't know how to do this particular calculation, right? ChatGPT can help you out to at least get you started. I would like to say that the emphasis on get you started, I wouldn't necessarily say that's the final law, but at least can get you started on something that you are working on. Another way as well is if we're hard coding stuff, if we're having to do a whole bunch of if statements or any type of coding, I'm using AI all the time because I know what I want. I just don't want to spend time doing it. So if I can tell whatever AI tool of choice to code this out for me, I'm leveraging it for that. And then another one that I've used is I don't necessarily like typing a lot and doing a lot of different things. And I'm kind of awful sometimes with like DevOps and different things. And I might not be as detailed as I need it. I started using it for like my DevOps and some of my sprint planning, and really just at a high level where, again, I'm keeping confidential information away from it, but it's more or less like, hey, Bill, help me build out kind of this information for the project manager or whoever I'm working with at the time to make sure that the requirements and stuff are clear and concise. So I've found that it's helped me out that way as well. So a lot of different ways, like outside of just like generating photos and stuff, is like, how can I use AI to give me back time in different areas that I might not be the best at? So we think about our workflow, where we spend our time. Number one is data preparation, right? So as Steve mentioned before, he had a data set. It might have been pivoted and cleaned in the way that he wanted it to do. And there's opportunity to leverage AI to get it in the way that you want. We have Tableau prep. We have different tools available. Sometimes you might have a sample data set that you just need to get cleaned up, or you don't know the code to how to unpivot or pivot it yourself if you're doing it in SQL. So with data preparation, it can help us with some of the functionalities and functions that we might need depending on the tool that we're using. Technical development, so as mentioned, writing calculations, creating parameters, building logic, kind of helping us out there. Visual design, I'll walk through the scenario where we can actually help build out some visuals and leverage AI to give us some ideas, right? Sometimes when we have a blank canvas, we don't really know what it is that we want to create. And so leveraging AI is kind of a thought-oriented person to give us a starting point has been really helpful. And then business discovery, right? So framing questions, uncovering insights for stakeholders. So stakeholders might have a particular question, or we don't really know what we want from the stakeholder. We can leverage AI to be like, all right, here's the example that I want. Help me identify 20 questions to get more information from the stakeholder, or help me come up with 3 or 4 different scenarios that I can leverage this data, right? Again, it's just kind of a starting point to get you started to leveraging it for different things that you need. So when we think about AI as a co-pilot, not autopilot, biggest piece I want to say, don't go on autopilot. Please don't just copy and paste anything with AI. I think we've all seen the wave of information going out and how many hallucinations and different things that happen with these different AI products. So I like to say it can be a co-pilot to assist you, but if you're on autopilot, I want to just copy and paste everything in there. As I mentioned, is a brainstorming partner, so it can help you generate ideas that you might not have considered. We're tired, we're busy. There's a lot of our attention span is shot. There's different opportunities for us to leverage AI to come up with different ideas that we might not have thought of in our own way to get us to a starting point. It can be a technical assistant. So again, handling repetitive coding and calculation tasks. Any type of coding, like I know the foundations, but if I'm doing any type of if statement, if I'm doing any type of lookup statement, if I am doing any type of JSON, I'm using AI to code this out. I know exactly what I want. I put the prompt in and then give me my information back, and then I just modify and tweak it as I need it. Productivity multiplier, and then gives us appropriate context and creative thinking to remain irreplaceable, right? So the biggest piece is, will AI replace us? I don't think it's going to replace us. I think you got to leverage it as a tool, but you want to make sure that you're using it in the right ways. All right, so practical AI use cases for Tableau Analysts. Here, I'll walk through applications that I've used for my daily workflow. So we'll walk through this. When it comes to the Tableau Analyst, as I mentioned, I started using Tableau in 2017. and I needed to build out a Tableau portfolio. And the hardest part of all this stuff was we have Superstore, we have existing data sets, but what if I want to do something creative? What if I wanted to do something in the particular industry? What if I wanted to do something with sports data, as Chimney mentioned, right? A lot of my stuff early on was with sports information. Now with AI, what I would leverage and what I've done before is to generate mock data sets, especially for a public portfolio. This is a great opportunity to come up with an industry specific with fake data sets. So if I want to do something with healthcare or nonprofit or fundraising or hospitality, whatever it is, right? I can give AI and leverage AI to come up with these mock data sets. That way I can create some stuff for the portfolio that helps with personal branding, that helps with career movements, so on and so forth, right? So I'm able to use AI versus having to create it myself, go to Mockaroo, these different websites that are out there. I can leverage these different tools to give me an actual data set. You can also access public data through AI. So I've used it to pull down some stuff from Yelp, Google, different public sources, and put an emphasis on public there to just pull it down for me. We could have done Python scripts. I could have manually scrubbed it myself. I could have, got an intern or somebody to come and help me out. But really with the use of AI, I was able to get this information and pull it down and leverage it with real information and then give validated sources of URLs that it was out there and leverage it for an existing report. And then simplify API connections. I'm not a Python developer at all. I know Python, and a little bit enough to be dangerous to pull down data set. But with the use of AI, I can at least connect and understand some of these Python scripts that I need. So if I need to manually do something, I'm able to leverage it. So it just makes the capabilities of building out your Tableau portfolio a lot faster and a lot easier. When I first started out, I was on just all the blog sites trying to understand Python or how to pull down, Laker data set, whatever it was. But now with AI, it helps me get there a lot faster. As I mentioned, accelerating calculations and logic. So ultimately, if there is some SQL logic that I have, I want to build this out in Tableau, I can use it as a starting point. So an example would be I need a calculation that shows 3-month rolling average of sales, but only for customers who have purchased at least twice in the past year. All right, if I can just normal translate what my need is and throw it in there, it can help me at least get started with it. And then I could bug it from there. But again, right, it's not always just copy and paste what's in there. It can at least get you to a starting point, but you want to verify that it's work. You want to make sure the performance is fine. You want to make sure that you're doing everything that you need, but at least get you to a starting point versus again, scrolling down, looking through the different blogs or different areas and understanding it. You want to make sure that, you at least leverage it for a good starting point, but then also understand what it's doing at the end of the day as well. I like to say that I use AI as a starting point so that I can understand it, but I have to know the details. I never want to be so reliant on a tool that if it ever goes down, I can't do my job. So I want to use it to a sense to get me started. But if ChatGPT, Claude, Agentforce, any of these tools are ever down and they're offline, but I have a deadline in the next 2 hours, I don't want to be so reliant on the tool that I can't get the deadline out there. You still have to have awareness of what it is and can still dive in there. It just helps speed it up. But you have to understand, you have to respect the craft, and you have to be able to get in and dive into it. So use this as a starting point with your calculations, but always do the work and understand the logic behind the scenes. All right, another one is enhancing dashboard design and storytelling. Again, biggest piece, you can throw stuff to AI and it can make some suggestions. Again, might not always be best practice, might not always be, the best thing that would be for visualization. It throws some stuff out there that's not great. And you're like, oh, I don't like this. Let's do something else. But sometimes it can get you started with, where you can put some of the puzzle pieces for the design that you're wanting to do. So, really give you ideas from a storyboard perspective, helps you with generation and then design acceleration as well. So if you're using company logos, improvements, different things of that nature, you can use AI to help you out there. And I'll walk through an example of that. And then supercharging insight generation. So simulate stakeholder perspectives. If I was to create this data set or I was to publish this data set, let's say we're leveraging a fake data set that I'm using for my Tableau portfolio, I'm creating a dashboard that I want the end customer to be someone for sales who sees this on Tableau public. You can ask questions to AI and be like, what questions would a sales VP want answered with this customer retention data? Or if I were the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and I had access to this information, what would they want to answer? So it starts just the process of being able to generate and ask different things more broadly that you can approach it and then, really try and answer some of the questions that you want. It also can generate alternative scenarios. So how would a 10% increase affect profitability? Which external factors could explain these seasonal variations, so on and so forth, right? So it gives you just a good trial, lack of better words, before maybe you have a big meeting or something else to think about as you're creating this dashboard. Because oftentimes I think as developers, we might create something and we think it's phenomenal and fantastic. It's, we create this LOD calculation, we have all the colors, it's pretty, but it might not be answering the questions that the end user might want. So leveraging AI from a different perspective can help you really, think about some of the things that you might not be thinking about while you're in development mode. All right, live demo. So we're going to do some fun stuff. So what I'm going to do is go through ChatGPT, how I leverage ChatGPT to use a realistic data set. Number two, we're going to design a custom theme for company branding. So you saw my logo. I'm going to leverage it to create some JSON and some preference files for me. Number three, we're going to switch over to Claude Anthropic, which is another one that I love to use. We're going to build out just a generic wireframe based on the requirements and best practices for data visualization. And then number four, my favorite one, this is one of the newer ones that came out. This got popular in probably like May. MCP. If you are not familiar with MCP, I will give you a 30-second overview of what I think it is, but it's fantastic. So I'll show you how to connect the Tableau server via MCP. But let's go ahead and get started with ChatGPT. So what I want to do is create a realistic data set with AI. I have ChatGPT desktop on here. And as I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and just give a prompt. But this is what I would do if I was building out a Tableau portfolio, right? If I just want to create a data set for a particular industry that I'm targeting and going after, I will leverage ChatGPT to create it. I could do it myself. I can go in Excel. I can do it. But if I want to, come in here, go to ChatGPT, the prompt I could use is I'm building a Tableau portfolio and I need to generate a mock data set, create a data set for a sales company based in Nashville, Tennessee for 2024 and 2025. You can add additional context that you want. You can say add lat long, all these different parameters that you might want to do. You can go ahead and start posting it in here. And what it can do now, right, is fake information, but we can leverage this data for Tableau Public. So when we put the prompt in here, we're going to do a live demo. We're going to put ChatGPT 5 instant to the test. It's not instant, so it's still thinking about it. All right, so as we hear, we created a mock data set 2025 with transactions across. Each row contains revenue, quantity, and all this information. If I wanted to download it, I could download it. I did this prompt before. It's supposed to show me on the screen, but let's go ahead and download it so you can see what it looks like. We'll put it here. So as you see, it spit out a CSV for me. And so now I have a simple CSV. If I wanted to optimize it and do some other stuff, I could, but we come in here, within 2 seconds, I have something that has information particular to Nashville. So Jim and Aaron, y'all might recognize some of these regions. So we have Midtown, the Gulch, the West End, different areas that are broken out based on information that's there. You have unit price, you have revenue. So if I wanted to add additional columns, I could here, but in 15 seconds, right, it already created a CSV for me. So if I wanted to target a hypothetical business in Nashville, I can leverage AI to then create, a mock data set. I can say, generate the lat and long so I can create a map or generate KPIs, right? All this stuff within 2 seconds of just, giving it a prompt to do. So when it comes to Tableau Public portfolios, I love using AI for this example because it just speeds up the time for getting the data. And I feel like getting the data is one of the hardest parts of all this stuff. All right, next step is design a custom theme from company branding. So I love this. I saw somebody post this on LinkedIn where they were leveraging AI using different images to create different code. And so when we look at my logo that I have, here's my business logo. And I try and have everything royal blue with the same RGB code. I could copy and paste. I could do a lot of different things. But if I want to create like a theme or preference file, it might be a little bit challenged for me to do this. So what I can leverage is, again, using AI. I'll use ChatGPT in this example. I will start a new chat. So if we're familiar with the preference files, you can leverage it and open it up. If you're familiar with the preference files in Tableau, it's a custom color palette in here. So all of this is code based, where you have your preference, you have your palette, you can put your colors, you can make it categorical, sequential, so on and so forth, right? But this is code, right? So all of this stuff is code. How can we customize this stuff so I'm not spending time coding? I want to use this AI and I want to create a preference file. So what I can do is go to ChatGPT and I can upload my image because it is a public image that I care about. Use your AI tool of choice, but the prompt itself is create a preference file based on my logo. So if I was to give it this prompt, so as you can see, it's created the royal blue color blue analytics portfolio for me. Using it recognized the color for me, it created that, and it even did sequential, and then it did diversion, right? 2 seconds or less where it built it out. I could have done it myself. I could have gone to a website. I could have used a magnifying glass, understand my RGB, and then looked at what the similar ones were. Or I could leverage AI and it built some of this stuff for me. Now I at least have the baseline of my code for me, and I can just tweak it as I see fit. I can add additional colors. I can do additional things. I can give it additional prompts if I want to, but I do know it's tied to the color of my logo. So again, 2 seconds or less, I have this. Now I can download this file. I can put it in Tableau and I can leverage it. Another one that I love is with the new JSON formatting themes. So if you're not familiar with this came out in 2025.1. And then instead of the preference file, you can use the JSON files, and this gives you a little bit more flexibility. It's out there on Tableau.com. You can import a custom theme, but you can go in here and add a lot of different context, a lot of different things for your worksheet. So if you want everything for your style font color to be this, you can make your font family all around, your worksheet titles. There's a lot of flexibility for your format that you can leverage and code out. That way you have some automation and some synergies across different workbooks and different dashboards that you have built out. Let's do the same philosophy here in ChatGPT. Or if I want to do a theme, I can do the same thing. So I could tell it to create a custom Tableau theme based on the requirements from my logo. And for good practice, I kind of give it the URL just so it can know specifically what I'm looking at. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. But sometimes that kind of helps out. So in this example, as you can tell, I gave it the logo already, but I told it to now create a JSON file. And the same thing that we had before, we had the font colors, worksheet titles, the different things that I just showed you from the actual website. It just created that for me based on the logo. So again, if you don't want to spend time learning JSON or putting stuff in JSON, you can leverage these different tools to help you get started. And then from there, you can add more to it, add more different context, you add more different RGBs, whatever it is. But you have this information in here, and then now you can download this JSON file, which I have already done previously. So I have a JSON file. And now if we go to just Tableau.com, Cardinal Sin. If we go to format, import custom theme, go to royal blue analytics.json and override. So in 2 seconds or less, if I wanted to implement this theme, I could, right? So I gave it a prompt, I gave it my logo. It changed all my font sizes, changed all my colors. Now everything is built out and I have a standard JSON. And if you do this company-wide, you could have the same look and feel from all your text across the board. So now you have some standardization across every single department who's working as a Tableau developer, so on and so forth, right? But all that took, not a long time to do. All right, next one that I have will be build a dashboard wireframe from Anthropic. So if you're not using Claude, I love Claude for different things. I love the ability for it to help me out with some of the creative process, some of the wireframing and different layouts and stuff that are visible for it to create it for me. So if we think about Claude, which is another tool, is Anthropic. It's pretty popular. It's definitely growing steam as well. Let me get that up and running. Okay, so if we look at Claude, I'm using Claude Desktop. And in this example, I am going to tell it to use this Tableau Superstore data set, which I think it can find online. I'm pretty sure it can. I'm just going to do this prompt now. I didn't practice this one, so we'll see what happens. But I'm just going to pretend that I don't have access to the Superstore data set, but if it can find it, and I'm going to tell it to create a dashboard wireframe for me for a VP of sales. So now what it's going to do is going to do that whole thinking thing and see if it can find it. Might be using MCP. Okay, let's see if it'll do it. Okay. So this kind of goes into MCP, but ultimately I'll dive into what this list data source, this list fields is. This is actually connected to my Tableau data source that I have. So it actually found an existing data set in my Tableau server because I gave it authentication. And then now it's actually creating a wireframe based on real deal data that I have in my actual Tableau server. So kind of skipped ahead for me, but it's doing some of the MCP stuff. But let's pretend we didn't have access to MCP and you either gave it a CSV or you gave it access to another file, it would do the same thing. So then on the right side, what it's doing is generating code for you to basically do some HTML stuff. It's creating this wireframe, and it's going to, again, be a starting point for you for what your information can be. So we'll give it a couple minutes. Okay, cool. So this is actual data set of what a wireframe could look like. So this looked at sample superstore and it built out a wireframe. It gave us filters at the top, whereas time period, region, category, segment. We gave us a title here. It gave us our KPIs or our bands, our big aggregated angry numbers, as Steve loves to call them. It gave us a lot of different information and what we can put up here with our KPIs. It also gave us some placeholders of where we can visually put some of this information, right? So again, it's a starting point. It might not be necessarily the end point, but at least we can see something on paper of conceptually what can our design look like in Tableau. It gives us sales and profit trends, sales by region, category performance, segment, different things of that nature, and actually displays some of the data in here as well. And it just brought it out. So in 2 seconds or less, I didn't necessarily go to PowerPoint and then go to Figma and then go anywhere else. I was able to look at like a sample data set, do something on paper, and then I can theoretically give this to a stakeholder. Of course, I'd modify it and do all different things that I want, but I can theoretically give this out and be like, hey, conceptually, here's what a dashboard could look like that I'm building out based on your data set or based on a public data set that I have. All right. So my favorite one, MCP, and I'll try and dive into this pretty quick. I didn't put a timer on, I should have. So I'll try and get through this pretty fast. So if you're not familiar with MCP, MCP is hot. It's coming out. There's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of information out there. But MCP was created by Claude, I believe, Anthropic. And now, ultimately, the biggest analogy that I saw, and this is a really good image that I found online, is that an MCP server is basically like a USB for your LLM AI tools. So if you're using MCPs and you're using Claude to talk to different clients, theoretically, I can leverage Tableau server with my Google account, with my different remote services, with Slack, all in one place, as long as I have a server that hosts it. And so with MCP as a protocol, you can plug and play different applications, but from Claude, you're able to leverage, or whatever AI tool of choice, ChatGPT, whatever different ones that you're using, you're able to use natural language to bring back information. So you can mix and match and get different results based on the different things that you're connected to. So theoretically, a use case could be I can connect to Tableau server and I can set an alert. And then if I got an alert, I can set up something to where it creates a Gmail notification based on instruction. I don't know. I'm throwing out scenarios, but ultimately MCP is phenomenal from a natural language perspective, and it helps you do a lot of good different insights that are out there. So when it comes to Tableau, Daryl Murray created a fantastic blog in June, and he's really one that like had me started to look more into this. And ultimately, it's a great tool from Tableau. They just released it in June, but they continuously build on it and do a lot of different things out there. So there's a lot of just different queries. You can he set up instructions on how to set it up, so on and so forth. If you're going to go down the MCP path, you got to be familiar with GitHub and set up how to do repositories. All that says in the walkthrough. The biggest piece here is the list. So this is the official Tableau MCP GitHub repository that has the information that you want. And I'll walk through Claude, just some simple things, but these are the different variables that are available. So if I want to list my data sources, list fields, different things, all this documentation will be in the GitHub repository, so you're able to see it yourself. You will need a personal access token and then just the ability to connect to your Tableau server to be able to use this. So in this example, what I would do is I'll go to Claude. I already have it connected in Claude. And let's say I want to come in here and I want to say list my Tableau data sources. So what it's doing is it's already connected to my workspace that I have set up, and now it's going through every single one and it is analyzing the different workspaces that are out there, the different things that are available. I personally created a Lakers data set that will come at a certain point. Let's see if it shows it. That I'll use for a sample test. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. Let's see if I tell it stop in here. All right, stop. All right. Analyze Lakers data set. All right, so now that I have a data set in here that I built out, we can say list the fields and it can list it out. Now it is querying an actual data set from Tableau and it's actually going to create an analysis for me and this information that I have just strictly from Tableau. So what it's going to do is just building this out and it's getting the starting point to what I think, it could build out. So as you can see with natural language, because of MCP, I did not have to export any of my data to a database, or if I was connected to a SQL database, I could, right? There's a lot of different things that I could have done with it. But because I'm connected to a data set that's already built in, Anthropic Claude did an analysis for me. It did a high level analysis for the record that I had. So if we're looking at this, the record is 1532. Some of the key metrics are 113 per game, average points allowed, point differential, home loss, so on and so forth, right? There's just so much information, who we had the best performance against, who did the Lakers struggle against, winning patterns, so on and so forth, right? Just all this different information. And all I did was type, two things, analyze the Lakers data set, and it built out a whole narrative thing for me. Now, of course, you want to validate, look at the results, look at the information, dive into it. But because I know the Lakers and I know this stuff, like I feel really good about it. And it found like some nuggets and gems that I wouldn't have even thought of if I was trying to build out a dashboard. So ultimately, like MCP is really phenomenal and it's really great. Another thing with MCP is I can tell it to generate for the opposing team. I can generate the lat and long for the opposing teams. And it will go out there and it will look at the stadiums based on the data set, and then it'll create a data set for me. And then I can then download that as a CSV. I can then upload that CSV to the same data set. And then now I have a map and stuff. So if I wanted to actually create a dashboard that has information that shows the individual locations, now I have that in 2 seconds or less, right? I'm not having to create any Python script and I'm not having to do anything. I'm using public information that I have to build it out. Did it for me. Now I have something again for my portfolio. And then it's doing the breakdown and doing a whole bunch of different things. And then I could take this and then build out a wireframe and then, ask the data to do with other stuff, right? All of this in 2-3 prompts, right? Speed to consumption is the biggest deal, right? That's the biggest piece where AI, you can really leverage it and get a lot of time back. So with that, validate AI, best practices and guardrails, validate AI outputs. Always check your AI generated calculations, data, and insights for accuracy. AI is the first draft, not the final product. Always check it. Don't just give it out. Don't be the one that you get a report to your manager and they're like, this number's wrong. It's like AI said it was right. Like you get fired. But don't be that person that does that. Protect data privacy, biggest piece. Always just be smart with all this stuff. Don't put any healthcare, PII, any sensitive stuff. Look at your metadata. If you're going to give it an XML file, look at different things that are there. Be particular about what you're leveraging it for and be smart about it. If you have internal, different LLMs technology, wherever you're working at, that's been built out in-house, leverage it for whatever you're using, but do not use public AI tools with private data. Like, just be smart about that. Apply human judgment. Sometimes, this is the piece where I think us as developers, where we will still thrive in 5-10 years, where we know the priorities of the organization, we know the behind the scenes stuff, we know the things that aren't necessarily in the computer. So use your expertise and your business knowledge and your domain knowledge and leverage AI as a tool, not as an end all be all. And then leverage community knowledge. Like Tableau community is massive. There's a whole bunch of things that are out there from an AI perspective. There's so much going on. Like, be smart, consume it, but be smart about what you're consuming. It's moving really fast. So I don't think you got to know it all at once. But just, leverage it to whatever you're using and be smart about what you're consuming. But, try and implement it as much as you can where it makes the most sense. So future Tableau AI generate this slide. But what's coming from Tableau and Salesforce? There's a lot of stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff. It's everywhere. So, but if I were an analyst, here's what I would focus, like I do, creative problem solving, leverage these tools, for whatever it is that you're building out. And be critical of the different insights that are coming. Don't just copy and paste. Don't just, I want to really bring that point home. Like, don't just think everything that's built out by AI is what's going to be done. Make sure you are using your brain still with AI, and then stakeholder storytelling that connects data to business outcomes. A lot of different things out there, but I think, just using these different tools that help you out with what you're doing day in and day out is a great starting point if you haven't done anything at all. So AI will free us to be more human. So our creativity, if we have more time back, we're able to be more creative. We're able to collaborate more. We're able to use this time for strategy, and we're able to think about the impact that we're making with the business outcome. You don't have time if you're thinking about some of the smaller things, but once you have some of that free time, you're able to be more productive and more of an asset to whoever you're working with. So with that, there's supposed to be a QR code. It's like really massive, but let's see if that's better. There's a QR code on my business website. Add me on LinkedIn as well. Sekou Tyler. Follow me on all platforms. I have a whole bunch of stuff. I'm accessible. I'm really laid back. So reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to help out.
We cannot hear you, Shindy. Today we have problem with sounds.
Okay, how about now? Beautiful. Perfect. So yeah, thanks. That was a great presentation. Definitely showing, some practical ways of how we can utilize AI in our workflows. And so, obviously I think the goal here, like, even though we're still in that controversial phase where it's like there's a lot going on, just use it the right way. And, just make sure that you're not treating this thing as something you can rely on. You still have to take leadership in terms of, where you're going with this. So if you got more questions, definitely feel free to connect with Sekou, chat about all things AI, all things tech, and, you'll get some good stuff going. Question wise, I think that we're just going to jump to the next speaker, but what I would appreciate, Sekou, if you can hop into the Q&A and just, maybe handle some things, that would be awesome. And so last but not least, we have Sean. Perfect. So let's wait for the screen. Beautiful. So Sean is a Tableau visionary and an ambassador, also someone who's been around for a long time, dropping gems and giving value. He's a principal consultant at Concord. He's based in Kansas City, Missouri. And so essentially the gist of what he does is, he helps clients make a difference with their data. And so, that's basically just involves whatever the client needs. As mentioned, Sean is a seasoned pro. He's actually been using Tableau since 2015. So again, another decade of experience here as well. Sean also hosts a weekly live stream on YouTube. I believe he used to do the makeover streams. I don't know if that's still going on. So, but I guess Sean, you can address that later. So, okay. He also leads the Data Plus Music project, which is a community project which you can get involved with and visualize things related to music. And he also co-leads the Kansas City user group as well. Some fun facts about Sean. Sean's work was featured in the Makeover Monday book, and his work has been selected as Visit of the Week. And his first ever Tableau Public Viz was selected as Visit of the Day. That's fantastic. I don't think I know anyone else who has done that. So that's really something solid there. And today, Sean's going to talk to us about mastering Tableau published data model. So a very useful aspect of kind of the work we do in office and in the real world. So lots of gems to come for us today. So over to you, Sean, to bring us the goodies.
All right. Awesome. Can you guys hear me? All right. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much. And good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. So excited to be here. Going to be talking about, it's actually a great segue from Sekou's presentation, as everything that you saw on the MCP stuff, not possible if you don't have published data sources. So if you don't publish your data sources separately, Tableau, you can't interact with them outside of everything. So, which is kind of a new shift. So hopefully, this is certainly something that I've been putting together over my 10 years of experience here using Tableau. And if I had known these things sooner, then it would have made my life a lot easier. Today. So if you are, hopefully if you're a newer user to Tableau, or if your organization is newer to Tableau, hopefully you can get put on the right track for using published data sources, as opposed to embedding your data sources into just in the workbook. So let me share my screen, and we'll go ahead and get started here. So I'm going to do the entire screen and share. All right, very good. Okay, so going to be talking about mastering public data sources. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got about 20 minutes. I'll be nice and efficient. As in the introduction, you heard everything that they said there. Everything you said there was correct. So that's great. Appreciate that. So it's good to hear. So yeah, 4-time Tableau visionary, 10 years using Tableau social ambassador. I lead the Kansas City user group. I'm also a Workout Wednesday coach. So if you participate in Workout Wednesday, or if you're not familiar with it, go check us out, workout-wednesday.com. We have over 6 years. I don't know. We started Work Over Wednesday back in 2017. So we have a weekly challenge for every single week going back to 2015. And it's a technical challenge. Essentially, if you've never heard of it, we provide you the access to the data. We provide you a data source. We provide you with a picture and a demo dashboard of what the final product should look like, and we give you a list of requirements. After that, it's all up to you to figure out how quickly you can how you can kind of go about solving that challenge. So it's a great technical challenge. Definitely check it out. And then, yes, as Chimdi mentioned, I also lead the Data Plus Music, which has been on a brief hiatus, but stay tuned tomorrow for an exciting announcement for Data Plus Music. So excited for that. All right, so this is just a little other thing that I like to do because it's unique and I get to do it. So if you're sitting there and maybe you're newer to the Tableau community, but you've been using Tableau for a bit and you're like, Sean Miller, that name sounds so familiar. Where have I seen that name before? Well, if you've played around with the Superstore data source, you've probably made this scatter plot or or likely a ranked bar chart by total sales. And yes, it is true. I am in the Superstore data source data set, which is pretty cool, for the top ranking customer by sales. So imagine my sentiment as I sit down at my first Tableau training ever back in 2015, and the user and the instructor says, drag and drop interface, you can't break anything. Just go make some charts and then, get familiar with the UI and the layout. And so I dragged customer name because I knew what that was. And I dragged sales because that's obviously I could understand that. And then I figured out how to sort. And then I saw my name at the top and I was like, this is wild. I guess I have to stick with this. So that's a little bit of fun there. No, not very profitable, John. I am actually like one of the, as you can see here, very low in profit, but highest in sales. So at least I'm doing something right. So all right. So as they already mentioned, weekly live streams on YouTube. Go check them out. Scan that QR code for all my socials. It's all good. All right. So what are we here to talk about? We're talking about published data sources. So as I mentioned, published data sources, I think they were not used very much in the early days of Tableau. I think they're certainly gaining popularity now, which is why I want to kind of talk about published data sources. So we're going to talk about what published data sources are. We're going to talk about why and when to use them. And we're going to finish up with some tips and tricks and gotchas with, because it's not all prim roses, right? There are some gotchas that you need to kind of think about when it comes to published data sources. But as I mentioned earlier, you cannot do any of the fun, cool stuff without published data sources. All right. So what's a published data source? A published data source, we know that that under the hood, a Tableau workbook is nothing more than just an XML file that all of the information with your workbook. A Tableau published data source is exactly the same thing, but for just your data source, right? So it's an XML file. Like literally, you can download a TDS, which is a Tableau data source. You can open it in a notepad. It's an XML file. It provides information of your data source for connection information, tables, joins, relationships, all of the different table columns, all of that kind of stuff. And then if you choose to extract the data, it will also contain the data. Very similar. So the file type is TDS for a live connected Tableau data source. If you apply an extract to that, that's a TDSX. Yeah. Now, I say and in there. It also can contain calculated fields, which means that calculated fields and groups, custom groups, sets, parameters can live in two places. They can live in a data source in your XML file, but they can also live in a workbook, which can be a problem. Can introduce problems, not can be. It can introduce problems, but with good maintenance and good governance, you can get around that. So just know that you can have two in one. So likely, I'm sure that for some of us who have been using Tableau for many years, have probably run into this next issue. So if you've been a long-time user or a short-term user, just know that this next slide may cause some anxiety for users when encountering published data sources. The grand old edit copy. So you're in web authoring or you're in Tableau desktop. You need to make a change to a data source calculation or something along those lines, and you right-click on the calculated field only to find edit copy. So what in the world is going on here, right? Why do I see this edit copy? Well, because, as I mentioned, calculated fields can live in two places. They can live inside of a data source and they can live inside of a workbook. So so essentially what I instruct people to do and what I'm instructing you to do today is, I think generally what used to happen is you'd create a data source, you'd create your analytics, you'd create your dashboard, and then you would publish your data source, and then you would publish up your workbook after you had done all of your development. But what actually needs to happen is you can't create a dashboard without a data source. So you do your data source first, and then you publish up a clean version of your data source, and then you can do all of your development. Right? And that's how you can get around this edit copy, because if the source calculation lives in the workbook, anybody can go in and edit the definition of that calculation. Now, there may be some times where you don't want people to edit the version of the calculation, right? There are times when you want to have approved or dedicated business logic calculations that you don't want people going away from, or if they choose to go away from it, that's fine, but the source of truth will always live within the workbook. So that's another use case that you would definitely want to do that. So Yes. So that's why you see the edit copy. Maybe if we have some time, I'll show you how to get around edit copy. And you basically need to create a local version or go into web authoring and edit your data source and go through it that way. But just know that there are workarounds and understand why you're seeing that. So if you ever see that, just know that that calculation was created prior to publishing the data source. So it lives in the data source.
Sean, excuse me to interrupt you. You can take the time that you want. I'm here until the end of time.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I do have a little bit of a hard stop at 1, but I will. I'll do my best. So, and no hard feelings for any of the other speakers. It's totally understandable. Thankfully, my presentation is not as involved or as in depth. It's just more of a presentation to kind of help you think about kind of how you're doing it. So it's all good. So at the end of the day, published data sources are not dissimilar from embedded data sources, but they certainly have their advantages, right? So the top reasons to start using published data sources. It's a great way to standardize and govern your data sources using Tableau. Yes. Ease of access, right? That's another one that I like to, basically the ease of access means that really anybody can use, once you publish a data source, creators or explorers will have the ability to go in and choose to create new, new analytics based off of an approved data source. It does help you standardize your business logic. It's also great for admin and maintenance because certainly I've seen it more often than you can imagine. And I'm sure if we were to go into your all's environments, we would find that, a particular table or a particular data model is used across multiple different workbooks and multiple different data sources. And each and every single one of those has a separate refresh schedule. And if they're anything large, you're taking up, you're basically duplicating the amount of storage on your server, and you're creating more work for your environment. So your Tableau admins will definitely love you if you start using published data sources from a maintenance and admin kind of standpoint. The next thing, obviously, as I've alluded to a few times, Tableau, if you want to start using Tableau Pulse, and you should be using Tableau Pulse, Tableau MCP, basically a lot of anything new, essentially anything that you want to have your, anything that you want to interact with from a programmatic standpoint. So like anything with the Viz data, the VizQL data service, the headless BI stuff, the MCP, Tableau Pulse, all of those things are going to require a published data source. Even bridge connections. So I know that bridge, so if you're using on-prem data on Tableau Cloud, Tableau did just release only, like Tableau Bridge has been around since 2013, but only just in the last year did Tableau Bridge finally get access to embedded data sources. So just get in the habit of using published data sources. I can't tell you the last time I created a data source in Tableau Desktop. I have pretty much converted to creating all of my data sources on Web Edit and then connecting to them through desktop. So just kind of keep that in mind. One of the things I really want to kind of really emphasize with a published data source is a single source of truth. We know that there are any number of different use cases for a specific data source. And if that data source is published, you have the same source of truth, which I think is really at the crux of what's really at the crux of a lot of trust with data is everybody has their own definition of a data source. Everybody has their own definition of what the sales metric should be, or what the or what the rate, right? What what, everybody has their own definition. And that's because they're all using different data sources, right? So if you can all agree, or at least, come to the table saying, this is this is the way that we are going to define this business metric. Nobody, you don't have to agree with it, but you do have to understand that this is the approved one and this is the one that we're moving forward with. And then from there, you can then create any number of different analytics, any number of different dashboards, any number of different pulse metrics, but everything is going to tie back to a single source of truth, so that the sales metric that the procurement team finds is going to match the sales value that the merchandise and planning team finds, right? Because they're starting from the same starting point. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. And then, obviously I certainly agree and encourage you all to start using Tableau Pulse for those of you on Tableau Cloud, if you're not already, because again, a little bit of a plug for a different topic that I have is, if you have any hesitation about using Tableau Pulse that it's going to take your job away, it is absolutely not, because who wants to build another KPI dashboard, right? Like, Tableau was not designed to be a KPI monitoring tool. It was meant to see and understand data and analyze at the speed of thought, right? And that's what I think, published data sources allow for a better use of that. Because if you think about it, let's take this example. So I go and I create a dashboard and I publish that up, and my stakeholder, my manager, my boss, my executives are looking at it, and they have a question. They want me to drill into a specific, they want me to drill into this metric at this intersection of dimensions, right? And they want me to really go deep into an analysis, right? Okay, what would be my preference? Would I want to start in a workbook and a data source that's got 100 different calculated fields and 17 sheets? Or do I want to start from a clean data source that is still tied to the same data source, and I can immediately jump right in and get to the meat of the analysis that they're asking? I would certainly prefer the latter, right? I want to start clean, I want to start fresh, and I want to get to exactly what they're looking at, as opposed to having to sift through all of the different calculated fields and thinking, oh, did I already create that or not? I don't know. Sometimes it's just faster just to build it fresh. And that's what published data sources will allow you to do, which is really, really exciting. There I go. So I hadn't refreshed I hadn't advanced my screens, but yeah, that's basically what this slide is. And again, if you had embedded your business logic calculated fields inside of the data source prior to publishing, I'm already that much further ahead than I would be, right? So just kind of think about those things. Now, they're not too dissimilar from embedded data sources, but there are some things to keep in mind before using them. So when we think about using a published data source or using an embedded data source, let's keep these things in mind, right? So again, as I mentioned, one extract refresh to rule them all, as opposed to proliferating across your system pretty much the exact same data source or very, very similar. And if you have too many extract refreshes happening at the same time, you could bog down your system, and you could do that. Again, centralized data management. That's one of the benefits of that. You can create policies, right? You can create, row level security. That's one of the nicest things about published data sources that I've found recently, is I can apply row level security at the data source level. And now I don't need to worry about anybody, any explorer, any creator picking up the data source, because I've already applied that at the data source level. And now I know for certain that anybody who's looking at it, either from a explorer, creator, or viewer, is going to only look at the records that they have access to, because I set that at the very top, as opposed to making sure remind all of the people who use that to apply the row level security, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. Also, Tableau published data sources are meant to be shared, right? And they become available to Tableau users to connect to, as opposed to if you just publish a data source inside of a workbook, you're locked within that workbook. And then the last two are just two caveats with published data sources specifically. If you're working in Tableau Desktop with a published data source, it does require online access to work in desktop, because that data source is hosted online. And so, if you need to work offline, you'll have to take a local copy of it. But just kind of keep that in mind if you're doing that. And then lastly, as it relates to published data sources, try to minimize or don't even use aliasing right now with dimension members. So you can go in and you can alias, like sometimes, for some reason the people who run the database, they don't call the actual dimension members, what they should be to the business users. So Tableau does have the ability to use aliases. However, the caveat with that is that calculations are still going to be tied back to the source value as opposed to the alias value. So just think about alias values as only what the people see, not how Tableau interacts with the data. So if you create a published data source with aliases, just know that you're going to have some issues. You could potentially have some issues with that. So with that, I think that is everything that I've got. Again, published data sources are great. Use them more than you do embedded. They're going to really help you out and speed things up.
Thank you very much, Sean. That
Yeah.
was very nice. And I learned a lot. I think that you explain it very, very well.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, one of the things I like about published data sources is, as someone who's working a lot on the front end, once you publish a data source, you can make some front end changes, and publishing the dashboard is just so much faster than when you have it embedded. So that's another benefit too of those things. So pretty cool. If you got any questions, definitely feel free to connect with Sean. I think this is definitely a critical part of working with data in Tableau. Awesome. So thanks to everyone who has stayed so far. I'm just going to share my screen again. There we go. Perfect. So lots of great information from our speakers today. Be on the lookout for email for the recording of today's session. And of course, you're probably going to be getting some resources as well to kind of check out some of the things that we've seen today. Of course, we look forward to seeing you next month. So please do go ahead. For those who haven't already joined us on Bevy, you definitely want to do that, because you get all the reminders to register and do everything like that. You can also scan the QR code to get connected with us then. And we'll see you next month.
Thank you, everyone.